They wanted me to put my dog down after my nephew hurt her, but now they're in tears since the police agreed with me. The air in the veterinary clinic was a sterile cocktail of antiseptic, fear, and the faint, sweet smell of animal fur. It clung to my clothes, a shroud I couldn't shake off. My dog, Luna, a golden retriever mix with more heart than sense, was lying on the cold metal table, a patch on her side shaved raw where the vet was stitching up a deep gash. Her tail gave a weak, pathetic thump, thump, thump against the steel. It was the sound of forgiveness, and it broke my heart. Across the room, my nephew, 6-year-old Leo, sat on his mother's lap, wailing. He had a row of angry red teeth marks on his forearm, shallow but dramatic. My sister-in-law, Karen, was glaring at me, her eyes twin shards of ice. She hadn't said a word since we arrived, and the silence was louder than her son's performative sobs. Dr. Evans finished the last stitch, his movements gentle and practiced. He gave Luna a soft pat. "She'll be sore," he said, his voice low and calm, a balm in the charged atmosphere. The cut from the fence post was deep, but it's clean. The bite on Leo was an inhibition bite, a warning. She could have done much, much worse if she'd meant to. He looked from me to Karen, a seasoned diplomat navigating a familial war zone. "She'll need to be watched, but she's not an aggressive animal." Something must have provoked her severely. That was the cue Karen had been waiting for. She stood up so abruptly that Leo tumbled from her lap onto the linoleum floor with a surprised yelp. She didn't even look down at him. Her entire being was focused on me, a laser of pure, unadulterated rage. "Provoked her?" she shrieked, her voice cracking. "My son was playing in your yard. Your vicious beast attacked my innocent child. That thing," she pointed a trembling, manicured finger at Luna, who flinched at the sound, "needs to be put down. Today." The words hit me like a physical blow. Put down. The two ugliest words in the English language when spoken about a creature you love. I looked at Luna, at her soft brown eyes that held nothing but trust and confusion. She had been my shadow, my comfort, my reason for getting out of bed during the darkest days after my own parents passed away. She was the one constant good in my life. "No," I said, my voice barely a whisper. "Absolutely not." "What do you mean, no?" Karen's voice rose an octave. "It bit a child. My child, that's the law. You have to put it down before it mauls someone else. Or are you so selfish, so wrapped up in your little pet project that you don't care about human life?" She was playing to an imaginary audience, her hands gesturing wildly. Dr. Evans stepped back, holding up his hands. "Karen, let's all just take a breath. The bite isn't severe, and we don't know the full story." "I know the full story," she snapped, turning on him. "The story is that this monster you're defending attacked my son for no reason. I've been saying it for years. That dog is unstable. It's always watching Leo with those creepy eyes. I never should have let him come over here today. I should have trusted my gut." She turned back to me, her face a mask of righteous fury. "You are going to sign the papers. You are going to have that thing euthanized. Or I swear to God, I will make your life a living hell. I will sue you for everything you have. I will call animal control and the police. They will take that dog and they will kill it. The only difference is whether you do it with a shred of decency or if you force the state to do it for you." My blood ran cold. This wasn't about Leo's safety. I could see it in her eyes. This was about power. It was a victory she had been craving for years. She had always resented my bond with Luna, calling her my fur baby with a sneer, complaining about the hair on the furniture, making passive-aggressive comments about the cost of vet bills. She saw Luna not as a living being, but as a symbol of my independence, of a life she couldn't control. And now, she thought she had the perfect weapon to destroy it. What she didn't know, what nobody in that room knew, was that I had installed a new security system just last week. A high-definition camera, tucked discreetly under the eaves of my back porch, covered the entire yard. It was my dirty little secret, installed after a package had gone missing. I had a clear, unobstructed view of the entire incident. I hadn't even had a chance to look at it yet. but I knew what it would show. It would show the truth. My silence wasn't shock. It was calculation. I let her talk. I let her dig her own grave. "Karen," I said, my voice surprisingly steady, "we are not putting Luna down. That is not happening." I scooped Luna into my arms. She was heavy, still groggy from the sedative, and she whimpered softly, nuzzling her head into my neck. "We're going home." "You are not taking that animal anywhere," she screamed. She pulled out her phone, her fingers jabbing at the screen. "I'm calling them right now. You'll see. You'll see what happens when you choose a dog over your own family." The threat hung in the air, thick and poisonous. My own family. She meant her son, her husband, my brother, Mark. She was drawing a line in the sand, and I knew with chilling certainty that she had already convinced Mark to stand on her side of it. I walked out of that clinic with my dog in my arms, the sound of Karen's shrill voice reporting a vicious dog attack to a 911 dispatcher echoing behind me. The drive home was a blur of adrenaline and fear. I placed Luna gently on her bed in the living room, surrounded her with her favorite toys, and filled her water bowl. Then, I went to my computer, my hands shaking as I typed in the password to the security system's cloud server. I clicked on the file from that afternoon, and I watched. The video was horrifyingly clear. The sun was bright, the grass was green. Luna was lying peacefully in a patch of sunlight, dozing. Then Leo came into the frame. He wasn't playing. He was on a mission. He had a thick stick in his hand, a branch he'd broken off my lilac bush. He started by poking Luna. She lifted her head, blinked at him, and then laid it back down with a sigh, as if to say, "Not this again." He poked her harder. She got up and moved away, trying to find another patch of sun. He followed her. For the next 10 minutes, the video showed a relentless campaign of torment. Leo cornered Luna against the back fence. He threw small rocks at her. He pulled her tail. He hit her with the stick, not hard at first, but with increasing force. Luna's response was a masterclass in canine patience. She whined. She growled low in her chest. She tucked her tail between her legs and tried to make herself smaller, to become invisible. She looked towards the back door, towards me, her ears flattened in distress. The final act was brutal. Leo cornered her by the woodpile, where the fence had a loose, jagged post. He was screaming at her, his face red and contorted, calling her a stupid, dumb dog. He swung the stick like a baseball bat and hit her hard on her flank. Luna yelped, a sharp cry of pain, and scrambled to get away. In her panic, she scraped her side deeply against the exposed nail on the fence post. That was the gash. Trapped, hurt, and terrified, she finally turned. As Leo raised the stick for another blow, she lunged forward and snapped, catching his forearm. It was exactly what Dr. Evans had said, a quick, controlled bite, a final desperate plea to be left alone. She didn't hold on. She didn't shake her head. She bit, and she immediately retreated, cowering by the fence, bleeding and trembling. Leo dropped the stick and started to scream, a sound of shock and anger, not pain. A moment later, I came running out of the house. The video had no sound, but I could see it all. The manufactured narrative Karen was spinning fell to pieces in silent, high-definition clarity. I saved the file to 3 different hard drives and uploaded it to a private server. My hands were steady now, my mind sharp and cold. The fear was gone, replaced by a glacial rage. This wasn't just a child misbehaving. This was cruelty. And Karen's immediate, calculated response was not the action of a concerned mother. It was the action of a predator who saw an opportunity. She was willing to kill my dog to cover up her son's behavior and to finally win a long-simmering war against me. An hour later, the knock came. 2 officers from animal control stood on my porch. A man and a woman, their faces impassive, professional. "Ma'am," the man began, "we've received a report of a dog bite. We need to see the animal and take your statement." I invited them in. I was calm. I was prepared. Luna lifted her head from her bed and gave a soft woof, her tail giving a tentative wag. The female officer, her name tag read Davies, smiled softly. "She's a pretty girl," she said. I explained my side of the story, keeping my voice even, sticking to the facts. I told them about Leo's history of being rough with her, about Karen's animosity. They listened patiently, taking notes, their faces giving nothing away. This was a story they had heard 100 times, from 100 different defensive dog owners. I was just another line in their report. Due to the nature of the report involving a child, the male officer, Martinez, said, "We are required to place the dog under a 10-day quarantine. She cannot leave your property, and you cannot have any visitors. We'll check in, and at the end of the 10 days, if there are no signs of rabies and no further incidents, the quarantine is lifted. However, the family has the right to petition for a dangerous dog hearing." "I understand," I said, "but there's something else you need to see." I led them to my office and played the video on my large monitor. I didn't say a word. I just let them watch. The silence in the room was absolute, broken only by the soft whir of the computer fan. I watched their faces. The professional neutrality slowly melted away, replaced by frowns of concern, then outright shock. Officer Davies let out a small gasp when Leo hit Luna with the stick. When the video ended, Officer Martinez turned to me, his eyes wide. "Ma'am," he said, his tone completely changed. "This changes things. This changes things significantly. Can you provide us with a copy of this footage?" "I can," I said, "and I'd also like to file a report for animal cruelty and for filing a false police report on the part of my sister-in-law." Officer Davies nodded, her expression grim. "I think that's a very good idea." They left not just with a copy of the video, but with a completely different case than the one they had arrived with. The hunter had become the hunted. The first stone had been thrown back. The next 10 days were a siege. Karen launched a full-scale assault. She called my brother Mark and fed him a poisoned version of the story. He called me, his voice torn. "Karen is hysterical," he said. "She says Luna savaged him, that you're in denial. Can't you just, I don't know, board her somewhere for a while? Let things cool down?" "Did you see Leo's arm, Mark?" I asked, my voice flat. "It was a scratch. Luna has a dozen stitches in her side. Did Karen tell you that part?" "She said the dog threw itself against the fence trying to get at him," he mumbled. The lie was so audacious it was almost impressive. "Look, I don't know what happened. I wasn't there. But he's my son, and he's terrified. Can't you just show a little compassion?" "Compassion?" The word was so bitter it felt like ash in my mouth. "Mark, you need to see something. I have a video of what really happened." I sent him the file. He didn't respond for 3 hours. When he finally called back, he was a different person. His voice was hollow, dead. "I saw it," he whispered. "Oh, God, I saw it." "What are you going to do?" I asked. There was a long pause. I could hear him breathing, a ragged, broken sound. I have to talk to a child psychologist," he said finally, "and I have to talk to my wife. I don't understand. Why would she lie like that?" But I knew he did understand. He had been living with Karen's casual cruelties and manipulations for years, choosing to ignore them for the sake of peace. That peace had just been shattered. Karen, realizing she was losing control of her husband, escalated. She began a smear campaign within our extended family. She sent pictures of Leo's bitten arm to aunts, uncles, cousins. The narrative was always the same. My unstable, aggressive dog had attacked her sweet boy, and I was a cold, heartless monster for refusing to put it down. My phone buzzed with texts from relatives I hadn't spoken to in months, urging me to do the right thing. They offered condolences for the difficult decision I had to make, as if Luna's death were a foregone conclusion. I was being tried and convicted in the court of family opinion, and the evidence was irrelevant. This was my rock bottom. I felt utterly alone, besieged by my own blood. I sat on the floor, my head against Luna's warm, sleeping flank, and I cried. The stress was immense. I wasn't eating. I wasn't sleeping. I called out of work, unable to face the world. The thought flickered through my mind, a poisonous little whisper. Maybe it would be easier to just give in. Move away. Start over. Let her win. It was a moment of profound despair, the weight of it all threatening to crush me. Luna nudged my hand with her nose, as if sensing my surrender, and licked the tears from my cheek. Her silent, unconditional support was the only thing that pulled me back from the edge. No, I would not let them win. I would not sacrifice this innocent creature for their lies. The next day, I hired a lawyer. Her name was Sarah Klein, and she specialized in animal law. She was sharp, no nonsense, and she watched the video with a grim, satisfied expression. "This is an ironclad case for defense," she said, her fingers steepled under her chin. "But it's more than that. This is a case for offense. The complaint filed with animal control is based on a fraudulent claim. That's a misdemeanor. The animal cruelty aspect is more complex, given the perpetrator is a minor, but the parent's complicity and subsequent cover-up is a huge factor." She laid out the plan. We would countersue. We would demand that Karen pay for all of Luna's vet bills, my legal fees, and damages for emotional distress. We would cooperate fully with the police investigation into the false report and provide testimony. We would not back down. For the first time in weeks, I felt a flicker of hope. I wasn't alone anymore. I had an advocate. Sarah's first act was to send a cease and desist letter to Karen, demanding she stop her campaign of harassment and defamation against me. The letter also informed her that we were in possession of video evidence that contradicted her claims and that we intended to pursue all available legal remedies. The effect was immediate. The calls from relatives stopped. A wall of silence descended. Karen had retreated to plan her next move. Her next move was to lawyer up herself. We received a letter from her attorney offering a settlement. It was insulting. They would graciously drop their demand for Luna to be euthanized if I agreed to sign a non-disclosure agreement, pay for Leo's therapy sessions, and send Luna to a behavioral rehabilitation farm for 6 months, at my own expense. The audacity was breathtaking. They were still acting as if they held all the cards. "They don't know we've given the video to the police," Sarah said with a thin smile. "They think this is still just a negotiation between two parties. They are in for a rude awakening." We rejected the offer flatly. Meanwhile, the police investigation was moving forward. Detective Miller, a tired-looking man with kind eyes, was handling the case. He interviewed me at length. He interviewed Dr. Evans. He interviewed my brother, Mark. Mark's interview was the turning point. Under formal questioning, away from Karen's influence, he told the truth. He admitted that Leo had a history of being rough with animals. He admitted that Karen had a deep-seated animosity towards me and my dog. He admitted that when he saw the video, he knew Karen's story was a complete fabrication. His confession, combined with the video, was damning. The day Detective Miller interviewed Karen was the day the world tilted. He didn't just ask her about the dog bite, he questioned her about filing a false report, a criminal offense. According to Mark, who was there for the beginning of the interview, Karen started out confident, sticking to her story with practiced indignation. But when Detective Miller informed her that he had video evidence of the entire incident and that her husband had already given a statement corroborating it, all the color drained from her face. The interview ended with her attorney advising her to stop talking. The formal dangerous dog hearing was scheduled a month later. It was a quasi-judicial proceeding held in a sterile conference room in the county building. It wasn't a courtroom, but it felt like one. There was a hearing officer, a neutral third party, seated at the head of the table. I was there with Sarah. Karen was there with her expensive-looking lawyer. Mark was there too, sitting behind me, not his wife. He had been subpoenaed as a witness. He wouldn't look at Karen. Karen's lawyer went first. He painted a picture of a loving, doting mother terrified for her child. He described Luna as a ticking time bomb, a rescue dog with an unknown and violent past. He entered photos of Leo's arm into evidence. He tried to portray me as a negligent owner, an isolated woman who cared more for her animal than for her own nephew. It was a masterful performance of character assassination, twisting my love for my dog into a pathological defect. Then it was Sarah's turn. She was calm, methodical. She called Dr. Evans to the stand, who testified that Luna's injuries were consistent with being struck and scraped, while Leo's injuries were a classic example of a warning bite with no intent to cause serious harm. She called me to the stand. I recounted the events, the history of Karen's hostility, the campaign of harassment. Karen's lawyer cross-examined me, trying to trip me up, to make me seem emotional and unreliable. I just kept my eyes on Sarah, who had told me to breathe, to stick to the facts, to not let him get to me. I thought of Luna, safe at home, and it gave me strength. Finally, Sarah said, "We would now like to play a piece of video evidence, marked as Exhibit A." The portable television was turned on. The room was silent as the video played. I didn't watch the screen. I watched Karen. Her face, which had been a mask of composed confidence, began to crumble. As the video showed her son's relentless abuse of my dog, her composure cracked. Her jaw tightened, a muscle twitched in her cheek. When the video showed the final, vicious blow with the stick, she flinched, a tiny, almost imperceptible movement. But I saw it. The hearing officer saw it. Everyone saw it. When the video ended, the silence was deafening. Sarah didn't need to say anything else. The video had said it all. The hearing officer looked at the screen, then at Karen, his face unreadable. He cleared his throat. "In light of this evidence," he said, his voice heavy with official gravity, "the petition to declare the dog Luna a dangerous animal is denied. On the contrary, it seems the dog was the victim in this incident." He wasn't finished. "Furthermore, I am referring this matter, along with the evidence presented today, to the District Attorney's Office for review regarding the filing of a false report to Animal Control and the police. And I am making a formal recommendation to Child Protective Services that they investigate the home environment of the minor child, Leo. It was a total, devastating victory, more than I could have ever hoped for. I felt a wave of relief so powerful it almost made me dizzy. I looked over at Karen. Her face was ashen. Her expensive lawyer was whispering furiously in her ear, but she wasn't listening. She was staring at me, her eyes filled not with rage anymore, but with a dawning, hollow look of pure terror. The system she had tried to weaponize against me had just turned its full, impartial force upon her. Tears began to stream down her face. Not tears of remorse or sadness. They were tears of defeat. Tears of a narcissist who had been exposed, of a bully who had finally been punched back. She saw her perfect life, her carefully constructed image, crumbling into dust. She saw investigations, lawyers, and social workers in her future. She saw consequences, and she wept. The sight of her tears didn't bring me joy. It didn't bring me satisfaction. It just made me feel tired. So incredibly, deeply tired. The aftermath was a slow, messy unraveling. The district attorney did press charges against Karen for filing a false report. She pled no contest and was given a hefty fine and a year of probation. Child Protective Services did open an investigation. I wasn't privy to the details, but Leo was enrolled in mandatory therapy and a caseworker was assigned to the family. Mark, faced with the undeniable truth of his wife's character and his son's deep-seated issues, finally filed for divorce. The family was shattered, just as Karen had threatened, but it was her own actions that had brought the hammer down. Rebuilding has been a quiet, deliberate process. My relationship with my brother is strained, but healing. He has apologized profusely, not just for his lack of support, but for his years of willful blindness to Karen's manipulative behavior. He is focusing on getting Leo the help he so desperately needs, and on becoming the father his son deserves. We talk, but it's tentative. The trust, once broken, takes a long time to mend. I established firm, non-negotiable boundaries. I have blocked Karen on all platforms. I have informed my extended family that any attempt to mediate or pressure me into a reconciliation will result in them being cut off as well. Some of them still think I was too harsh, that I should have been the bigger person and kept the peace. They don't understand that their version of peace was my silence, my submission. I will never be silent again. My life is smaller now and quieter, and it is so much safer. The legal battle took its toll, financially and emotionally, but it was worth it. It was not just a fight for my dog. It was a fight for my own sanity, for my right to exist without being a target for someone else's malice. It was a reclamation of my own reality. Sometimes I watch Luna sleep. She still has a faint scar on her side, hidden beneath her thick golden fur. She sometimes flinches at loud noises or sudden movements, a lingering shadow of the trauma she endured. But she is happy. She is safe. She is loved. In the evenings, we sit on the back porch, in the very yard where it all happened. She rests her head on my lap, her breathing soft and even. I stroke her ears, and I feel the steady, reassuring beat of her heart. We survived. We look out at the quiet twilight, at the life we fought for, and we are at peace. The verdict was bittersweet, a victory born from wreckage, but in these quiet moments, it feels complete. We are home. We are safe. And that is a justice all its own. The path to this peace was paved with procedural nightmares I wouldn't wish on anyone. After the hearing, Sarah warned me that the civil suit for damages would be a separate, longer battle. Karen's lawyer, clearly trying to bleed me dry, filed motion after motion to delay. They requested depositions, they subpoenaed my financial records, my employment history, even my therapist's notes, claiming my emotional distress was a pre-existing condition. It was a war of attrition. They were hoping I would run out of money or resolve. But they underestimated me, and they underestimated Sarah. She was a bulldog. For every frivolous motion they filed, she filed a counter motion for sanctions. She argued successfully that their requests were designed to harass and intimidate, not to seek legitimate information. The judge, already familiar with the case from the hearing officer's report, grew visibly impatient with Karen's legal team. He started awarding us minor legal fees for every motion of theirs he denied. It was a small trickle of victories, but it kept me going. The support from unexpected corners was a lifeline. Dr. Evans wrote a lengthy, detailed report not just on Luna's physical injuries, but on her temperament, citing years of records to prove she had never shown a hint of aggression. He did it free of charge. The officers from Animal Control, Davies and Martinez, provided statements that were incredibly supportive, detailing Karen's demeanor during the initial report and her subsequent refusal to cooperate. They had seen through her from the start. My brother Mark's deposition was the most painful part of the process. He had to sit in a room with me, Sarah, Karen, and her lawyer and recount under oath the details of his marriage, his wife's lies, and his son's disturbing behavior. Karen watched him with dead eyes, her expression a chilling void of emotion. He didn't falter. He spoke the truth, his voice low and full of shame, but steady. He was finally taking responsibility for his part in it all, for the years he enabled her. It was his penance, and I knew it was costing him everything. In the end, Karen's insurance company, facing a mountain of evidence and a client who was criminally charged and under investigation by CPS, decided to cut their losses. They offered a settlement that covered all of Luna's bills, all of my legal fees, and a significant sum for damages. It was far more than I ever expected. Sarah advised me to take it. "A trial would be brutal," she said. "They would put you through hell on the stand. This is a clean win. You take the money, you sign the papers, and you never have to see her or speak her name again." I signed the papers. The money felt strange, like compensation for a wound that could never truly be priced. I used a portion of it to pay off the last of my debts. I put the rest into a trust for Luna's future care and donated a large sum to the local animal shelter in the names of Officer Davies and Officer Martinez. It was the only way to make the money feel clean. It wasn't a prize. It was a tool for recovery and a way to pay forward the kindness I had been shown. The process of healing is not linear. There are days when a loud noise makes me jump, when I feel a phantom sense of being watched or judged. The trauma of being gaslit by my own family left deep grooves in my psyche. My therapist calls it a form of betrayal trauma, one of the hardest to overcome. We work on it. We talk about boundaries, about trusting my own perceptions, about learning to differentiate between genuine concern and manipulation. Luna's recovery mirrored my own. For months, she was skittish around new people, especially children. We worked with a behavioral specialist, a kind woman who used positive reinforcement to help rebuild her confidence. Slowly, she began to trust again. The first time she licked a child's hand at the park without flinching, I cried. It was a bigger victory than any court settlement. The closing image of this chapter of my life isn't dramatic. It's not a courtroom showdown or a tearful reunion. It's last Tuesday. I was working in my garden, pulling weeds, the sun warm on my back. Luna was lying in the grass nearby, chewing on a favorite squeaky toy. My brother Mark called. He was at the park with Leo, who had just finished a session with his therapist. He told me today that he was sorry, Mark said, his voice thick with emotion. He said he was sorry he hurt Luna. It's the first time he's ever said it. It wasn't a magic fix. It was just one small step on a very long road for that little boy. But it was a step in the right direction. I hung up the phone and looked at my dog. She looked back at me, her tail starting to thump against the soft earth. I had fought a war for her, for us, and in the quiet aftermath, in the simple, mundane peace of a sunny afternoon, I finally understood the true meaning of the word sanctuary. It's not just a place, it's a state of being. It's the hard-won, fiercely protected peace you build for yourself when the world tries to burn you down. And we had built it, one painful step, one brave decision, one quiet moment at a time. We were the architects of our own survival.